How y'all doing? This is Craig with Goodson Guitars. Today in the shop we have a Vihuela. I think I'm saying that right, probably not, but anyway, moving on. What this is, it's an instrument used in the mariachi. It's a 5-string, mainly used for rhythm. It's got a higher pitch, kind of like a ukulele. So the reason this one is in the shop today is because they didn't use any glue on the bridge. The customer brought it in and he showed me what was going on, and literally I have done zero cleanup on this and there's no glue residue whatsoever. It's been scratched like they were trying to give it something to glue. The bottom of the bridge, I sanded it just a little, but there's hardly any glue there. So what we're going to do is glue it back on, glue it properly. But the problem we're going to run into is it is a small instrument and the sound hole is very small, so I can only get one clamp in of the clamps that I have. There are other clamps that you can buy that are skinnier that would be a better way of doing this, but I do with what I've got. So we're going to make a caul that I can clamp in the center that will also push down on the sides so we can get a good glue joint on this. So that's what we're going to do now. All right, so what I have here is a scrap piece of MDF, and we're going to trace out the bridge, and then when we cut it, the MDF should flex enough that it'll do what I want it to do. So we're going to trace around like so, and I'll keep this because I get a lot of these instruments in with the same problem, and I'll keep this and modify it as I need to. So we're going to cut this part out, and what I want is basically a couple of angles. Those don't have to be very precise, and then we'll come across like so. So that's going to be the caul, and it'll fit over the top of the bridge. And so I'll push when the clamp goes on, it's going to pinch down, but it'll also force weight and pressure out here on the sides. And we're going to do a test clamp like you always should do before we put the glue on to make sure it's doing what I need it to do. But let's get this cut out. So what we're going to do now is, you see how we've got the gaps, and we want to manipulate this until it's touching on the outer edges, but we have open air everywhere else. So when we put pressure on the caul, it puts the pressure out here where I need it. I can get my center pressure from the clamp itself, but I need to get pressure out here. In order for it to do that, these have to be touching. So I'm going to work it with the files and get it to where I need it. The files that I'm using, if you're interested, I got them from Stuart McDonald. This file here is a razor file. It'll leave a real smooth surface, but if you bear down hard, it'll get real aggressive. This same file, it's a razor file that's rounded. And then I have this set here that are more smoother cut, smaller files for defined work. This half round is real good for getting into small spaces, and it leaves a good smooth surface. So it's a good set of files to have on hand for this kind of work. I'm sure you can find similar sets at other places, but take off right here. I'm not going to use a sander because it's too aggressive, and you can take off more material than you intend to, and then you just have to start over. Really take some out right through here. All right. These wings, I'm going to chop these wings off in the bandsaw real quick. Let's run over there. Do a little check, see where we're at. Okay, let's look at what we've got. Now that I cut those wings off because they were kind of interfering here, you can see it, there's hardly any light all the way through. So I'm going to take this part right here and shave that down to where there is light. That way you can see. And so when I push down, most of the pressure goes out to the edges, and then it should touch once the clamp is applied, and that'll give me the pressure here, and I should have fairly even pressure all the way across. So I'm going to use the half round, raise this up so I don't mess up my vise. If I can get it back in there. All right, so if you come back in, you'll see there's a gap underneath there. So we're going to bring the instrument back in and do a test clamp and see what we're getting out of that. This is where you need an extra set of hands, maybe 2 or 3 extra hands, but you always want to do a test run with your clamp before you get your glue, because that's when because if you put hide glue on here, you only got a little bit of time to work it before it starts to dry. But you can see we've got a good lock right there, and it's pushed down all the way in the back, and it's pushed down in the front. So I think if we put a little bit more pressure, I need it to close up right there a little bit more, and I may be able to do that by just manipulating the jig. We're going to go ahead and get ready to glue it. Alright, so we're ready to glue up. We got our hide glue, we have some hot water, we got a rag, we got our clamp, our cawls, everything's ready to go. And you want to have everything in place and ready to get started, because if you're going to use hide glue, whether it's hot hide glue or the Type Bond hide glue, either one, you don't have a whole lot of time. This is a little more forgiving than regular hide glue, but like I said, once you get going, you don't want to have to stop. So we're going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to apply the glue fairly liberally because I want squeeze out. If you're not getting squeeze out, you didn't use enough glue, but you don't want like a crazy amount. Then I'm just going to brush this in. And part of this bridge is still attached, and we're going to use that as a registration point and also a way to get rid of that gap. We got it in, and we're looking to make sure we're registered. I'm going to hold this, keeping pressure on it, use the hot water to wipe off this excess because I want to see if I get any squeeze out when I clamp it. Now we got that done. We got our clamp in here. Another good thing about using cawls like this is it keeps the clamp high up off of the guitar where you can get in there to clean it out. And I want to try to pull this as tight as I can. That way when I activate the cam, not the clam, All right, so we're getting squeeze out. Now I'm going to take this shim and push it up underneath the caul to get that side to lock down, and I need to move my clamp over just a little bit. And we're getting squeeze out. Get it cleaned up. Another thing about hide glue is once this is dry, the places that I can't get to, I can just come back in with some hot water and it'll wipe right off the finish and it won't hurt it. So all right, we'll be back with y'all in just a minute. All right, so we got the bridge has been clamped. It's the glue's set up. So if you want to take a look at it, everything came out really well. It's solid. It's going to be on there. Customer shouldn't have any more problems with it. Luckily, we didn't have to get in and deal with the finish. So this job's done. We're going to call the client, have them come back and pick it up. And I appreciate y'all watching. If you like the content, go ahead and subscribe. If you have any questions, go ahead and post those down below. This is Craig with Goodson Guitars. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.